Peter Parker was already moving before his mind caught up. 1 second, he was swinging between tall buildings, wind rushing past his mask, and his web line tight like a cable. The next second, his spider sense screamed so hard it felt like a siren inside his skull. Something in the air ahead of him bent, not like smoke, not like heat, like the space itself was tearing open. "Okay, nope," he muttered, voice bouncing inside the mask. A white-blue rip appeared in the sky, thin at first, then wider. It looked like a crack in a window, except the window was the world. Peter fired 2 webs at it out of pure habit. The lines stuck to nothing. They vanished into the crack like they were pulled through a drain. The pull hit him next. His body yanked forward. His web line snapped free from the building behind him. He reached for another anchor point, but the air around him was sliding. It was like he was falling sideways. "Hey, hey!" he shouted, trying to twist his body to aim at a nearby wall. The tear swallowed him. For a moment, there was no sky, no city, just rushing darkness and a pressure on his chest like the world was squeezing him. Then, he slammed into dirt and leaves. His shoulder hit first. He rolled. He dug his fingers into the ground and stopped himself before he slammed into a tree. Silence. Not New York silence. Not sirens far away silence. This was deep, empty, like the world was holding its breath. Peter pushed up to his knees. His mask lenses narrowed a little as he looked around. Trees, thick and tall, a dirt path, night sky above, full of stars. No streetlights, no cars, no tall buildings. "Okay," he said softly. "This is not Queens." His spider sense did not calm down. It kept buzzing, not one sharp warning, more like a steady danger hum, like a smoke alarm that refused to shut off. Then he heard it, a scream. Peter's head snapped toward the sound. It came from deeper in the woods, down the path, maybe a few 100 feet away. He didn't think. He moved. He sprinted through the trees, feet barely touching the ground. Branches whipped past. His spider sense guided him around roots and rocks without him needing to look down. Another scream. A man's voice this time. Then a wet, choking sound. Peter launched himself up, grabbed a branch, and flipped forward. He landed at the edge of a small clearing. A cart had tipped over. A lantern lay on its side, shaking light across the ground. 2 travelers were pinned near the cart, one trying to crawl away, the other frozen with fear. And over them, a thing that looked like a person, but wasn't. It wore torn clothes and had long hair hanging in strings. Its skin looked too pale under the lantern light. Its mouth was wide, and its teeth were sharp in a way no human teeth should be. It leaned down toward the traveler's neck. Peter's spider sense flashed hot. He moved faster than the fear could spread. He shot a web, yanked the traveler backward, and slammed his own shoulder into the creature's ribs. The impact sent it skidding across the dirt like a rag doll. The traveler blinked, confused, alive. Peter stood between them and the creature, hands up. "Okay," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "No biting. Bad. We don't do that." The creature's head snapped toward him. Its eyes were wild, hungry, angry. It lunged. Peter ducked. A clawed hand sliced through the air where his face had been. He grabbed the creature's wrist, twisted, and threw it over his hip. It hit the ground hard. Peter expected bones to crack. Instead, the creature sprang up again like it didn't care. Peter blinked. That is, not normal. The creature charged again. Peter webbed its face. The webbing stuck, thick and tight. The creature screamed through it and tore the web away with brute force. Strings of web clung to its fingers, but it didn't slow down. Peter jumped back, shot 2 webs at its arms, and pulled. The creature's arms snapped outward. Its feet dug into the dirt. It fought him like it weighed a ton. Peter's eyes widened behind the mask. "Okay, you're strong, cool, love that for you." The creature yanked. Peter slid a few inches. Then Peter stopped playing nice with the tug-of-war. He planted his feet, pulled hard, and dragged the creature forward. As it stumbled, he flipped over it, wrapped web around its torso, and slammed it into the side of the cart. The wood splintered. The creature thrashed, but Peter piled more webbing on it, layering it thick like a cocoon. The travelers stared at him, mouths open. Peter turned his head slightly. "Run. That way. Don't stop." They didn't argue. They grabbed the lantern and stumbled into the trees. The creature howled and ripped at the webbing. It tore a hole through the layers and pushed an arm out. Peter's spider sense snapped sharp again. He grabbed the arm, slammed it down, and re-webbed it. He tightened the webbing until the creature couldn't move. He took a step back, chest rising and falling. Then he noticed something worse. The creature's skin was healing. Scratches closed, bruises faded, even splinters in its shoulder pushed out and fell away. Peter stared. No, 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 no. He punched the creature's jaw once controlled, not full force. The head snapped sideways. The creature grinned anyway, blood on its lips. It looked at him like he was food that could fight back. Peter's spider sense didn't just warn him of danger. It warned him of time. He looked up at the sky. Dark. Stars. No hint of dawn. "All right," he said, thinking fast. Plan B. He grabbed the cart's broken wheel, yanked it free, and kicked it into the creature's chest to pin it harder. Then he shot webs into the trees around it, anchoring the cocoon to thick trunks. The creature roared. The trees creaked. The web lines stretched. Peter grimaced. "Okay, you're gonna break this eventually," he admitted. "So I'm gonna need a sun? Is sun a thing here? Please tell me sun is still a thing." The creature's head tilted, like it understood the word. Then it thrashed harder. Peter grabbed the lantern, backed away, and ran straight into another presence. A boy stepped out from the shadows of the trees, carrying a wooden box on his back. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp and kind at the same time. A sword hung at his side. Behind him, a girl peeked from the edge of the trees. She looked young, but her eyes were strange. And her teeth, Peter's spider sense flared. The boy lifted a hand, not threatening. "Please," he said, "don't hurt it." Peter pointed at the cocooning creature. "I'm sorry that thing was about to eat 2 people." "I know," the boy said. "It's a demon." Peter froze for half a second. A demon. The word hit different than monster or mutant. It sounded like a story, a myth. But the cocoon behind him screamed again and ripped another hole through webbing like it was paper. The boy's gaze flicked to Peter's webs, then to Peter's mask. "You're not a demon. I can smell it. But you're not normal, either." Peter's voice came out smaller. "Yeah, that's fair." Another presence stepped into the clearing, cold and steady, like a blade being pulled halfway from a sheath. A tall man with dark hair and calm eyes stood there, holding a sword like it was part of his arm. He stared at the cocoon demon, then at Peter. His voice was flat. "Who are you?" Peter lifted both hands. "Friendly neighborhood, He looked at the swords, the box, the girl's teeth, the demon. He chose the safest word he had. "Hero." The swordsman did not relax. The cocooned demon screamed louder, and the web lines snapped one by one. The boy stepped forward. "Tomioka-san, he saved those people." The swordsman's eyes stayed on Peter. "That doesn't answer the question." Peter's spider sense buzzed like it was warning him about the man with the sword almost as much as the demon. In the distance, the first faint gray light touched the edge of the sky, and Peter realized he was standing between a monster that wouldn't die and a world that might decide he was one too. Peter did not like being escorted. It made him feel like a problem, but he didn't fight it. The boy Tanjiro, he said his name, was walked beside him, polite and careful, like he was trying not to scare a stray animal. The swordsman, Tomioka, walked behind and to the side, close enough that if Peter ran, the sword could move. Nezuko stayed quiet inside the wooden box on Tanjiro's back. Peter could still feel her presence, and his spider sense never fully stopped buzzing around her. But she didn't attack. She didn't even growl. It confused him. Dawn came fully as they moved through the forest. The demon in Peter's web trap screamed as sunlight touched it. Peter stopped and turned back for a moment, watching from a distance. The demon's skin smoked. It flailed. Then it broke apart, turning into ash that scattered on the wind. Peter stared. He had fought dangerous things. He had seen aliens, robots, monsters, but he had never seen a living creature burn into dust just because the sun showed up. He swallowed. So, sunlight kills them. Tanjiro nodded. Yes. Peter looked up at the sky again, like he was making sure it was real. Okay, great. Love the sun. Huge fan. Tomioka's voice was still calm. You held it until sunrise. Peter shrugged, trying to make it seem normal. I mean, yeah, that was the plan. It was a bad plan, but it was the plan. Tanjiro's eyes were gentle. You didn't try to kill it. Peter hesitated. I don't do that. Not if I can avoid it. Tomioka did not comment, but Peter could feel the judgment in the silence. They reached a road later that day. A real road, with old-style houses far off, and people wearing clothes that looked like they belonged in a museum. Peter's brain tried to connect it to a movie set. No billboards, no cars, no phones, no power lines. This wasn't just another city. This was another time. A small group of uniformed fighters met them at the edge of a quiet estate hidden behind tall trees. They wore dark clothing and carried swords. Their eyes locked onto Peter's mask instantly. Some looked shocked, some looked angry. One looked excited, like he wanted to fight. Peter felt the spider sense twitch again. Tanjiro bowed to the group and spoke quickly. He saved people from a demon. He restrained it until sunrise. A few of the fighters murmured. One of them, a young woman with a calm smile and bright eyes, stepped forward. She looked friendly. Peter's spider sense still warned him. That made him more nervous. Hello, she said, voice light. My name is Shinobu Kocho. Peter's shoulders loosened a tiny bit. Hi, I'm... He stopped himself before he said his real name. Spider-Man, he said instead. Shinobu's smile didn't change. Spider, man. She said it like she was tasting the words. And what are you? She asked, still smiling. Peter blinked. Human. Her eyes flicked to his hands, then his mask lenses, then the web cartridges at his wrists. Are you sure? She asked. Peter forced a laugh. Okay, that came out rude. Let me try again. I'm human. I got changed. A long time ago. Tomioka spoke flatly. He is strong. Fast. He senses attacks before they happen. Shinobu's smile stayed soft, but her gaze sharpened. How convenient. Peter lifted both palms again. Look, I get it. Mask guy shows up, shoots sticky stuff, throws demons around, says he's a hero. I would also have questions. One of the fighters muttered. We should just cut him. Peter's spider sense flared hot. Tomioka's hand shifted on his sword. Tanjiro stepped in front of Peter without thinking. Please don't. He helped. Peter looked at Tanjiro's back, surprised. This kid barely knew him. And he still did that. A gentle voice carried from deeper inside the estate. Bring him. Everyone fell quiet. Peter's eyes narrowed. Who's that? Tanjiro's face softened. Our leader, Kagaya Ubuyashiki. They led Peter into the estate. It was peaceful, clean, too quiet for a place that trained people to fight demons. Peter kept looking for cameras, for guards with guns, for something modern. There was none. He felt naked without his world's rules. They entered a simple room with sliding doors. A man sat calmly in the center. His presence was not loud. It was steady. It made everyone else feel smaller, not by force, but by peace. Peter didn't kneel. He wasn't trying to disrespect anyone. He just didn't know the customs. He stayed still instead. Kagaya looked at him with kind eyes. Thank you for saving those travelers. Peter exhaled. Yeah, of course. Kagaya nodded once. You do not smell like a demon. Tanjiro's head lifted slightly, as if relieved. Shinobu tilted her head. Still, he could be something else. Peter tried to keep his voice calm. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I didn't choose to come here. Kagaya's gaze stayed on him. Then tell us, what is your story? Peter hesitated. He had done this before, with Avengers, with cops, with people he trusted. But here, he was alone. He picked the simplest truth. I was a normal kid, he said. Then a spider bit me. It wasn't normal. I got powers. He lifted his hand and pressed it to the wooden wall beside him. Then he let go. His hand stayed stuck. A ripple went through the room. Even the fighters who wanted to cut him looked startled. Peter pulled his hand off. I can stick to walls. I'm strong, fast. I can shoot webs. He held up his wrist and fired a web line into the corner of the room. It stuck instantly. He tugged once. The beam creaked. Shinobu watched closely, like she was measuring every detail. Peter's voice got quieter. I became a hero because I lost someone, and it was my fault. I learned something from that. If I can stop bad things from happening, I have to try. Tanjiro's eyes softened. Tomioka's face did not change, but his focus sharpened, like he understood the weight of that sentence. Peter swallowed. And I don't kill. I can't, I won't unless there's no other way. A heavy silence fell. In that silence, Peter felt the gap between their worlds. In his world, no killing was a rule, a line he held even when it hurt. In their world, killing demons was the job. Shinobu spoke gently. That is unfortunate. Peter stared at her. Unfortunate? Her smile was polite. Demons do not stop. They do not go to prison. They do not feel regret the way humans do. Tanjiro's voice was quiet but firm. Some demons can change. Everyone glanced at Tanjiro. He didn't look away. Peter looked between them. Okay, so there's debate. Great. Kagaya's voice stayed calm. You restrained a demon until sunrise. That saved lives. That matters. Peter let out a small breath he didn't know he was holding. Kagaya continued, but you are also an unknown, an anomaly. Peter blinked. A what now? Shinobu's smile returned. Anomaly. Means you shouldn't be here. You don't fit the rules. Peter nodded slowly. Yes, that. Kagaya's eyes narrowed slightly, thoughtful. We must decide what to do with you. Peter felt his spider sense twitch, like it disliked that sentence. He tried to lighten the mood, because that's what he did when fear got too big. So do you guys have, paperwork? He asked. Because in my world, every time a new guy shows up, someone hands them a stack of forms. The room went still. Tomioka stared at him like Peter had just spoken a new language. Tanjiro blinked, then smiled a little, like he thought it might be a joke. Shinobu's eyes sparkled with interest. Forms? Peter shrugged. You know. Please list your powers. Please promise not to destroy the city. Please sign here if you accept the rules. That sort of thing. No one laughed. Peter coughed lightly. Okay, tough crowd. Kagaya's mouth lifted into the smallest smile. We do not have forms. Peter sighed. Okay, that is, honestly, kind of nice. Then Shinobu stood and stepped closer. May I examine your webs? She asked. Peter took a step back without thinking. His spider sense buzzed. Shinobu stopped, still smiling. I won't hurt you. I'm a doctor. Peter's voice came out cautious. Doctors in this world carry swords. Shinobu's smile widened a touch. We must. Kagaya nodded once. A simple examination. If you refuse, it will create fear. Fear creates mistakes. Peter weighed it. He didn't like being tested, but he liked innocent people dying even less. He held out one wrist. Okay, look, but no needles. Shinobu gently touched the web cartridge, then the web strand still stuck in the corner. She pulled at it, watched it stretch, and tapped it with a finger like she was testing rope. This is not silk from an animal, she murmured. This is made. Peter nodded. Science. Sort of. Shinobu looked at him. You can make more? Yeah, Peter said. If I have the right materials. Shinobu's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. Interesting. Tomioka spoke again. He sensed my movement before I moved. Peter glanced at him. I didn't sense you. My body warns me. Tanjiro leaned forward. Like you can smell danger? Peter thought for a second. More like, I feel it. A second before it happens. Tanjiro's face lit with wonder. That would save so many lives. Shinobu's voice stayed calm. Or it could make him very hard to kill, if he turns. Peter's stomach tightened. There it was, the fear behind the politeness. Kagaya's voice settled the room again. Spider-Man, if we allow you to move freely, will you follow one rule? Peter's head lifted. Depends on the rule. Kagaya's eyes were kind. Do not harm humans. Peter answered instantly. Done. Kagaya nodded. And do not interfere with our work without understanding it. Peter hesitated, then nodded. I can try. I'm not great at watching people die. Tanjiro's jaw tightened, like he understood that feeling. Kagaya's voice stayed gentle. Then this is our agreement. You may work with us. You will be watched. Not as a prisoner, as a question we must answer. Peter forced himself to accept that. Fair. Outside the estate, as the day moved on, Peter stood in the yard and stared at the sky. Same sun, same clouds, different world. And far away, in a city he hadn't seen yet, something else lifted its head at the smell of change. A man with perfect calm and perfect cruelty listened to reports that traveled through fear and blood. A masked stranger, strong, fast, strange webs. Muzan Kibutsuji smiled in the dark of a shaded room. A new ingredient, he whispered. Night returned too quickly. Peter hadn't slept. He couldn't, not with his brain screaming questions. Where was he? What year was it? How did a demon even exist? How did he get home? And under all of that, one question that made his chest hurt. How many people would die here while he tried to figure it out? Tanjiro found him before sunset, sitting on a roof edge like he was back in his own city. Tanjiro climbed up carefully, like he didn't want to startle him. You're worried, Tanjiro said. Peter's mask lenses angled toward him. Is it that obvious? Tanjiro nodded. Your shoulders are tense. Peter snorted. Great. Even in another universe, I can't hide stress. Tanjiro sat a safe distance away. We have a mission tonight. Peter's spider sense buzzed like it already knew. Tanjiro continued. A town at the edge of the forest. People are missing. Peter pushed up to stand. Then we go. Now. Tanjiro blinked. We leave after sunset. Demons come at night. Peter's voice came out sharp. So we wait until it's dangerous? Tanjiro's expression didn't change, but his tone stayed patient. We can search now, but we cannot fight a demon if it hides until night. Peter took a breath, forcing himself to slow down. Okay, fine. We search now. We protect at night. Tanjiro nodded, relieved at the agreement. Tomioka joined them at the gate before they left. He didn't say much, but his eyes stayed on Peter's hands, like he was always measuring what those hands could do. They traveled fast. Tanjiro ran with trained endurance. Tomioka moved like a shadow. Peter had to slow himself down to not leave them behind, which felt ridiculous and frustrating. When they reached the town, the air felt wrong. Peter's spider sense buzzed before anyone screamed. Tanjiro paused and sniffed the air. His face tightened. Blood. Tomioka's hand moved to his sword. Close. Peter's voice lowered. How close? The answer came from above. A figure dropped from a rooftop into the street like a stone falling from the sky. He landed without a sound. He looked like a man, strong, calm, clean clothes. Then Peter saw his eyes. They were not human. Tanjiro stiffened. Upper rank. Tomioka's gaze sharpened into ice. Peter didn't know what upper rank meant, but the way both of them reacted told him enough. The figure's smile was almost friendly. So, he said, voice smooth, this is him. Peter's spider sense screamed. He moved first, because he always moved first. He shot a web at the stranger's chest. The stranger leaned half an inch to the side. The web missed by a hair. Peter's eyes widened behind the mask. Oh. The stranger stepped forward, and his fist came toward Peter's face. Peter dodged before it landed, twisting so the punch cut air. But the punch still made the air shake. It was like being near a wrecking ball. Peter flipped backward, landed on the wall of a building, and stuck there. "Okay," Peter muttered. "You're fast. Great." Tanjiro and Tomioka moved in. Tomioka's sword flashed, clean and bright in the moonlight. The stranger's hand snapped up and caught the sword between two fingers. Tomioka's eyes widened for the first time. The stranger smiled wider. Hashira. Peter's brain latched onto that word like it mattered. Tomioka pulled hard, trying to free the blade. The stranger didn't budge. Then the stranger's other hand moved toward Tomioka's throat. Peter shot a web and yanked Tomioka sideways. The hand missed. Peter landed between them, knees bent. "Hi," Peter said to the stranger. "Quick question. Are you the local bad guy boss?" The stranger tilted his head. "I am Akaza." He said it like it should mean everything. Tanjiro's voice was tight. "He's one of the strongest demons." Peter glanced at Tanjiro. "Good to know." Akaza looked at Peter like he was a puzzle. "Your body moves before I strike." Peter forced a joke out. "Yeah, it's called anxiety." Akaza's eyes narrowed. "Show me your strength." He lunged. Peter's spider sense flashed. He dodged left, then right, then up. Akaza's fists chased him with terrifying speed. Each punch cracked stone when it missed. Peter shot webs, trying to bind Akaza's arms. Akaza tore through them like they were strings. Peter's stomach dropped. "Okay, rude." Tomioka attacked again. Blade aimed for the neck. Akaza slid back, spun, and kicked Tomioka in the chest. Tomioka flew through a wall. Wood exploded outward. Tanjiro shouted, "Tomioka-san." Peter's spider sense flared, and he shot a web to grab Tanjiro's shoulder before Tanjiro ran into a trap. "Tanjiro," Peter snapped. "Focus. He wants you emotional." Tanjiro blinked, then steadied, breathing hard. Akaza looked pleased. "You protect your allies. That is good." He rushed Peter again. Peter met him head-on. He caught Akaza's fist. The impact jolted through Peter's arms up to his shoulders, like catching a speeding car. Peter slid back, boots carving lines in the dirt. Akaza's eyes widened slightly. Peter tightened his grip and twisted, throwing Akaza over his shoulder into the street. Akaza hit the ground hard enough to crack it. Tanjiro stared, shocked. Tomioka stumbled out of the broken wall, bruised but standing. Akaza rolled to his feet, smiling like he was excited. "Yes, that." Peter's chest rose and fell. "I'm gonna say something, and it's going to sound weird, but can we not do this in the middle of town?" Akaza turned his head slightly, like he heard something else. A door opened nearby. A woman stepped out, holding a child, eyes wide with fear. Peter's spider sense screamed so loud it was pain. Akaza's gaze flicked toward them. Peter moved without thinking. He shot a web at the woman's waist and yanked her back into the house, gently but fast. He webbed the door shut. Then he shot 2 webs to pull broken wood and debris into a barrier across the street. "Everyone inside," Peter shouted, voice echoing through the town. "Stay away from windows." Tanjiro's eyes widened. "How do you know where they are?" Peter didn't answer. He didn't have time. Akaza stepped closer, watching Peter work. "You are strange," Akaza said. "You fight while saving. Most fighters do not do both." Peter's voice was tight. "Yeah, well, welcome to my whole thing." Akaza struck again. Peter dodged, jumped up to a rooftop, and sprinted along the tiles. Akaza followed like he could fly, bounding from wall to wall. Tomioka and Tanjiro chased from below, trying to keep up, trying to find the one opening that would let a Nichiren blade do its job. Peter realized the problem in one clear, awful thought. I can fight him. I can slow him. I can survive. But I can't finish him. Akaza punched Peter across the roof. Peter flew backward, crashed through another roof, and fell into an attic space. Dust exploded. Peter rolled, then sprang up before the boards could collapse. Akaza dropped through the hole after him, landing perfectly balanced. Peter raised his hands. "Okay, time out. You're very strong. I respect it. But I'm not here for whatever this is." Akaza's smile didn't fade. You are here. That is enough. He attacked again. Faster. Peter's spider sense fired warning after warning. He twisted and dodged, but the attacks came in waves. One punch clipped his shoulder. Pain flashed. Peter grunted, forced himself to stay calm. If he panicked, he died. If he got reckless, someone else died. He shot web lines to the ceiling beams and yanked them down, trying to trap Akaza under falling wood. Akaza smashed through it with one strike. Peter's eyes widened. Okay, new plan. No plans. He burst out through the attic wall, flipped into the street, and landed in a crouch. A few civilians were running anyway, ignoring the webbed doors. Peter's chest tightened. Please, he muttered. Please go inside. Akaza landed in front of him, and for a split second, Peter saw it. Akaza didn't just want to win. He wanted to prove something. He wanted Peter to choose wrong. Akaza's gaze shifted toward the running civilians. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter shot webs at the civilians' feet not to trip them, but to pull them sideways behind a wall, out of line of sight. They yelped, confused, but alive. Akaza's fist came toward Peter's face. Peter caught it again. This time, he didn't just block. He pushed back. Peter drove forward with real strength, forcing Akaza back step by step until Akaza's heels hit a stone wall. Peter slammed Akaza into it hard enough to crack stone. Akaza's smile widened like a kid being given a new toy. Yes, he breathed. More. Peter's stomach turned. You are the worst kind of gym guy. Tomioka appeared behind Akaza, sword flashing for the neck. Akaza's head snapped aside at the last second, like he sensed it. The blade cut skin, not clean enough. Akaza spun and kicked Tomioka away again. Tanjiro came in with a shout, blade aimed with all his training. Akaza struck Tanjiro in the stomach with a palm. Tanjiro flew into a wall and dropped to one knee, gasping. Peter's spider sense went sharp, then sharper. Akaza's next move was going to be lethal. Peter shot a web at Tanjiro's chest and yanked him back, away from Akaza's follow-up strike. Tanjiro coughed, eyes wide. Thank you. Peter didn't look at him. Stay alive. That's the mission. Akaza stood in the center of the street now, calm again, like he controlled the whole space. You protect them, Akaza said. But you will tire. Peter's voice came out tight. Yeah, that's kind of the human experience. Akaza tilted his head. You are not like them. Peter's spider sense buzzed at the words. Tomioka rose again, breathing heavy, steadying himself. Tanjiro forced himself up, shaking but stubborn. Peter looked at both of them. We need sunlight, Peter said under his breath. Tanjiro blinked. It's hours away. Peter's mind raced. He saw rooftops, narrow streets, houses with thick beams, a well, a stable. Then he saw the edge of town, where open space met fields. And he remembered the demon in the forest turning to ash. Peter's eyes narrowed. We don't need hours, he said. We need enough time. Akaza moved again. Peter stepped forward to meet him, but this time he wasn't trying to win. He was trying to hold the line. Peter fired webs into the ground in a wide circle, anchoring them to posts, walls, and thick beams. He created a web network around Akaza like a net. Akaza punched through one line. Peter pulled another line tight around Akaza's arm. Akaza tore it. Peter kept firing, layering, forcing Akaza to spend time breaking them. Tomioka and Tanjiro watched, confused at first. Then Tanjiro's eyes widened. You're slowing him. Peter didn't stop moving. Yes, that's the idea. Tomioka's gaze sharpened. He understood in a flash. He darted in, blade ready, using the half-second openings the webs created. Akaza adjusted. He started attacking the web anchors instead, breaking the net faster. Peter saw it and cursed under his breath. Akaza lunged toward a house where a child's crying had started. Peter's spider sense screamed like it was on fire. Peter moved faster than thought. He crossed the street in a blur, grabbed the child through an open window without breaking the wall, and pulled them back safely. Akaza's punch hit where Peter's head had been. Peter's dodge was barely enough. Akaza's knuckles grazed his mask. The force still knocked Peter sideways. He crashed into a wall and left a dent. Peter's ears rang. He blinked hard. Akaza stood over him, eyes bright. "You feel fear," Akaza said softly. "Good." Peter's voice came out low. "I feel responsibility." He shot a web at Akaza's face and yanked, pulling Akaza forward, straight into Tomioka's blade line. Tomioka swung. Akaza twisted at the last second, the blade slicing deeper than before, but still not enough. Akaza's neck healed even as the blade pulled away. Tomioka's eyes narrowed in frustration. Tanjiro's hands shook. "We can't." Peter cut him off. "We can." Akaza stepped back, suddenly still. He looked toward the horizon. The sky was changing. Not bright yet, but lighter. Akaza's smile faded just a little. He looked back at Peter. "You are interesting," he said, voice calm again. "I will remember you." Peter pushed up to stand, breathing hard. "Yeah, please don't." Akaza's gaze slid to Tanjiro and Tomioka, then back to Peter. "I will return," he said, as if it was a promise, not a threat. Then he leaped. He vanished over rooftops and into the dark, moving so fast Peter's eyes barely tracked him. Peter fired a web line after him out of instinct. It hit nothing. Silence returned to the street, broken only by distant crying and the creak of damaged wood. Peter stood in the middle of the town, chest heaving. Tanjiro leaned on his sword, bruised and shaking, but alive. Tomioka wiped blood from his lip and stared at the direction Akaza had gone. He retreated, Tanjiro whispered. Peter's shoulders slumped slightly. Because of the sun. Tomioka's voice was quiet and cold. Because he chose to. That sentence made Peter's stomach tighten. Because it meant the demon had control. It meant the demon wasn't running. He was deciding. Peter looked at the frightened houses, the webbed doors, the broken walls. He heard people sobbing behind wood and paper screens. He thought of how Akaza moved like a storm and smiled like a person at the same time. And he understood something new about this world. This wasn't a city with crime. This was a world at war, every night, forever. Tanjiro glanced at Peter's mask. "Spider-Man." Peter didn't answer right away. His mask hid his face, but it didn't hide the weight in his voice when he finally spoke. "We need a better way," he said. "Because I can hold them. I can save people." He looked at the sunrise creeping over the rooftops. "But I can't end it." Far away, in a place where the sun could not reach, Muzan listened to Akaza's report. A strange human, strength that didn't belong, a warning sense that bent fights. Muzan's eyes narrowed with interest. The new piece had entered the board, and Muzan already knew what he wanted to do with it. The town did not feel safe even after the sun came up. People stepped outside like they were afraid the light might disappear again. Doors stayed half closed. Curtains stayed pulled. Every small sound made someone flinch. Peter stood in the street with his mask still on, hands on his hips, staring at the damage. A roof had a hole punched clean through it. A wall was broken. Wood split like it was soft. The road had cracks in it where Akaza had landed. Peter had seen worse in his own city. He had seen whole streets ruined by bigger fights. But this felt different. Here, the people did not talk about insurance. They did not talk about repairs. They talked about tomorrow night. Tanjiro walked beside him, carrying a bucket of water and cloth strips. He had already helped bandage 3 people, even with bruises still dark on his own skin. Peter watched Tanjiro kneel next to an older man with a cut on his forehead. Tanjiro smiled gently. "You're safe. It's over for now." The man nodded, but his eyes stayed wide. "For now," he whispered back. Peter's chest tightened. He looked away fast, like he could dodge that feeling. He tried to focus on simple tasks. He used web lines to hold a broken beam in place so people could move safely under it. He lifted pieces of fallen wood like they were cardboard. He tied doors shut with webbing so no one would wander outside alone later. A woman stared at him from behind a paper screen. She didn't come out. She only watched the strange masked man who moved like a spider and carried beams like they were sticks. Peter raised a hand in a small wave. She vanished behind the screen. Tomioka stood a few steps away, arms relaxed, sword at his side. He watched the town, but he also watched Peter. Peter tried not to let it bother him. He failed. "You're still deciding if I'm a problem," Peter said without looking at him. Tomioka answered like he always did. Calm, flat, honest. "Yes." Peter snorted. "Cool. Love that." Tanjiro looked between them, worried, like he was trying to stop a fight before it started. Tomioka continued. "You protected people. You did not run. That matters." Peter paused. That was the closest thing to praise he had heard from the man. Then Tomioka added, "But you could not finish him." Peter's jaw tightened. "I know," Peter said. Tomioka's gaze stayed steady. "You will face this again." Peter finally looked at him. "And your plan is, what? Just keep swinging swords until it works?" Tomioka didn't blink. "Yes." Tanjiro spoke softly. "We get stronger. We learn. We keep going." Peter stared at them both, then looked back at the cracked street. In his world, he could put bad guys in prison. He could web them to a wall and call someone to pick them up. Here, there was no prison for demons. There was only sunrise, only blades, only ending. Peter hated that word. Ending. He turned away and started walking toward the edge of town. "We should head back," he said. "People need you. And I need a minute." Tanjiro followed. Tomioka followed too, silent as ever. As they left, Peter heard whispers behind them. "Is that a demon?" "No, it saved us." It wore a demon's face. It moved like lightning. Peter pretended he didn't hear. He had heard worse in his own city. But here, the fear felt older, like it had roots. The estate felt even quieter when they returned. The peace was almost painful, like the world was pretending nothing was wrong. Peter stood in the yard while Tanjiro reported what happened. Several slayers watched from a distance, eyes sharp. Some looked curious, some looked angry. Peter's spider sense buzzed when certain ones stared too long. He had learned something already. In this world, swords were normal. So when someone looked at you like they wanted to use one, it meant something. A young man with wild scars and fierce eyes walked past, gaze cutting into Peter like a knife. His lips curled like he was disgusted. Peter felt the buzz of danger rise. He didn't move. He didn't want to start anything. But the man spoke, loud enough for others to hear. "You should have cut it down when you had the chance." Peter turned his head slowly. "You talking about the demon?" The man's eyes narrowed. "I'm talking about you." Tanjiro stiffened. Tomioka's posture shifted just slightly, like a door locking. Peter held up his hands again. He was getting tired of that pose. "Okay. Hi. Friendly masked guy here. I'm not your enemy." The scarred man stepped closer, and the air around him felt sharp. "You fight like a monster. You smell wrong. You don't die when you should." Peter blinked. "Wow. That is a lot to unpack." Tanjiro stepped in fast. "Sanemi-san, please." Sanemi cut him off with a glare. "Don't please me, brat." Peter's spider sense flared. Not because Sanemi was attacking yet, because he might. Peter stayed calm anyway. He had dealt with hotheads. He had dealt with guys who wanted to punch first. He just wasn't used to the punch being a sword. A soft voice interrupted before it escalated further. "Enough." Kagaya's voice carried from the porch. The whole yard seemed to settle under it. Sanemi clicked his tongue and stepped back, but his eyes never left Peter. Peter glanced at Kagaya, then back at Sanemi. "So, do you have like a suggestion box for complaints?" No one laughed. Peter sighed. "Right. Still not funny here." Kagaya's calm gaze moved across the group. "We will meet. Now." The room inside was simple, clean, and tense. The leaders of the corps sat with careful distance between them. Tomioka stood to one side. Shinobu sat with her polite smile. Sanemi sat like a storm forced into a chair. Peter stood in the center with his mask on, hands at his sides, trying not to look like a threat. He felt like every breath was being measured. Kagaya spoke gently. "We are grateful for your help. We are also responsible for everyone you might affect. Peter nodded. Fair. Shinobu leaned forward slightly. Your webs are very strong. Your reflex is very fast. Your strength is beyond human. Peter shrugged. I've heard that one before. Sanemi scoffed. And he refuses to kill demons. Peter's eyes narrowed. Yeah, that's kind of my whole moral thing. Sanemi leaned in, voice harsh. Your moral thing gets people eaten. Peter's fists clenched, then unclenched. He forced his shoulders down. He knew that anger. It was the same anger he felt when someone called him weak for caring. He met Sanemi's eyes. You think I don't get that? You think I didn't just watch a monster heal from a sword cut like it was nothing? Sanemi's lips curled. Then you should understand. Peter's voice rose, sharper now. In my world, I've fought things that could crush buildings. I still didn't become an executioner. Tomioka's voice cut in, calm. This is not your world. The words hit clean. Peter went quiet for a second. Then he spoke again, slower. You're right, it's not. That's why I'm trying to learn the rules. Shinobu's smile stayed calm, but her eyes were serious. Then learn this rule. A demon that lives will kill again. Tanjiro, who sat at the edge of the room, spoke softly. Not all demons. Sanemi snapped. Enough. Tanjiro didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. Peter looked at Tanjiro, then back at Kagaya. I'm not here to lecture you, Peter said. I'm here to help. So tell me what you need from me. Realistically, not be someone else. Kagaya studied him. We need trust. Peter nodded slowly. Okay. Kagaya continued, and we need restraint. Peter almost laughed. Buddy, restraint is my brand. Sanemi made a disgusted sound. Kagaya didn't react to it. He stayed calm. Spider-Man, you may work with us under watch. You will not be treated as a prisoner, but you will not act alone without permission. Peter frowned. That's tough. Shinobu's eyes narrowed in interest. You dislike being told what to do. Peter opened his mouth, then closed it. That was accurate. He tried again. I dislike watching people die while I wait for permission. Tomioka's voice stayed flat. Then you will need discipline. Peter stared at him. You mean like teamwork, plans, rules? Tomioka nodded once. Peter exhaled. Fine, I can do teamwork. I've done teamwork. Sometimes. Shinobu's smile returned a little. Sometimes. Peter pointed at her. That tone is rude. Kagaya's mouth lifted faintly. There is another matter. Peter turned his head. Hit me. Kagaya spoke carefully. We must decide what to do about your nature. Peter blinked. My nature? Shinobu spoke like she was discussing weather. Your blood, your body, your webs. If demons obtain you, they may grow stronger. Peter's stomach dropped. He had fought villains who wanted his blood before. That never ended well. Sanemi leaned back, satisfied. So keep him locked up. Tanjiro's eyes widened. No. Peter's voice turned cold. That's not happening. A heavy silence fell. Kagaya's gaze didn't waver. No one will chain you today. Peter's shoulders loosened slightly. Kagaya continued. But you must understand the danger you bring, even if you do not mean to. Peter looked down for a second. He did understand. He was a magnet for trouble in his own world. Now he was a magnet in a world where trouble meant demons and dead children. Peter spoke quietly. Okay, so what's the plan? Shinobu's eyes brightened. We study your webbing. We learn what it can hold. We learn how it behaves against demon strength. Peter pointed at his wrist. As long as it doesn't turn into, like, let's take him apart. Shinobu smiled sweetly. Of course not. Peter stared at her. I don't believe you. Shinobu's smile didn't move. That hurts. Tanjiro whispered. She's like that. Peter muttered. I noticed. Kagaya nodded once. Then it is decided. You will stay at the Butterfly Mansion for now. Peter tilted his head. Butterfly Mansion. That sounds nice. Sanemi snorted. Don't get comfortable. Peter looked at him. Trust me, I'm never comfortable. That night, Peter sat on the roof of the butterfly mansion, knees up, arms resting on them. He watched the sky. Stars were the same. That made it worse. It meant the universe hadn't changed. Only his place in it had. He thought about Akaza's smile. He thought about the way Akaza looked at him like a challenge. Peter knew that look. He had seen it in villains who wanted to prove something by breaking him. But Akaza was different. Akaza didn't just want to win. He wanted Peter to choose. To choose strength over mercy. To choose killing. Peter pressed his forehead to his knees for a moment, breathing slow. A soft step landed behind him. Tanjiro sat down carefully, like he didn't want to scare him off the roof. "You're thinking hard," Tanjiro said. Peter snorted. "I'm thinking too hard. It's my superpower." Tanjiro smiled a little. "You did well in the town." Peter's voice got quiet. "I didn't do enough." Tanjiro didn't argue. He nodded. "I understand that feeling." Peter glanced at him. "Do you ever get mad that you have to kill them?" Tanjiro's eyes shifted toward the stars. "I get sad, and I get angry. But I still do it because if I don't, more people die." Peter's throat tightened. "And if you hesitate?" Tanjiro's voice stayed soft. "Then someone dies." Peter closed his eyes. That was the rule here. He didn't like it, but he could not ignore it. He opened his eyes again and looked at Tanjiro. "There has to be another way." Tanjiro hesitated. "There is one person. A doctor." Peter's head lifted. "A doctor?" Tanjiro nodded. "Lady Tamayo. She studies demons. She wants a cure." Peter felt something in his chest shift. A cure. That word felt like sunlight. "Where is she?" Peter asked. Tanjiro's voice lowered. "She is hidden, and dangerous demons also want her." Peter nodded once. "Okay, that makes sense." Tanjiro watched him. "What are you thinking?" Peter looked at his wrist, at the web shooter. "I can't use a sword like you," Peter said. "I can't breathe special styles, but I can build things. I can test things." Tanjiro blinked. "Build?" Peter nodded. "If I can't end demons myself, then I need tools that let you end them faster, or safer." Tanjiro's eyes widened with hope. "That could help." Peter tried to joke, but his voice was tired. "Yeah, congratulations. You found the one guy who solves feelings with science projects." Tanjiro smiled again. "That sounds like you." Peter stared at the dark tree line beyond the mansion. "And if there's even a chance of a cure, I have to chase it." Tanjiro nodded. "I will help you." Peter looked at him. "You barely know me." Tanjiro answered simply, "You saved people first." Peter went quiet. That was the nicest thing anyone had said to him in days. Elsewhere, in a room where the light did not reach, Muzan listened. A kneeling demon spoke with trembling fear. "Akaza-sama reports the masked man is strong," the demon said. "Very strong. He senses danger." Muzan's fingers tapped once on the arm of his chair. He did not look surprised. He looked interested. "A human with strength that does not belong," Muzan murmured, "and a rule against killing." He smiled faintly. "A chain he chose for himself." The demon swallowed. "Should we send more demons to fight him?" Muzan's eyes slid toward the trembling messenger. "No." The demon froze. Muzan's voice stayed smooth. "If you throw bodies at him, he learns. If you throw power at him, he adapts." He leaned forward slightly, like a man planning a game. "You do not break such a creature with fists," Muzan said. "You break it with choices." The demon's voice shook. "What choice, my lord?" Muzan's smile sharpened. "Home." He said the word like it was a blade. "If he believes he can return to his world," Muzan continued, "he will chase that hope. And if he chases it, he will walk where I want him to walk." The demon bowed lower. "Yes, my lord." Muzan's eyes went cold. "Find where he sleeps. Find who he trusts." He paused. "And do not touch him yet." The demon flinched. Muzan smiled again, calm and cruel. "Let him settle. Let him build bonds." His fingers tapped once more. "Then we cut the bonds." The next days were a strange mix of quiet and pressure. Peter stayed at the Butterfly Mansion under watch. He didn't like it. He also couldn't deny it helped. He learned basic things fast. He learned the Corps had no call system, no sirens, no police radio. Missions came through messengers. He learned demons were not rare. They were everywhere, like a sickness that kept spreading. He learned wisteria flowers made demons avoid an area, like a barrier they hated. He also learned the people here lived with fear like it was weather. Peter tried to help in small ways. He fixed broken roof tiles. He carried water buckets without strain. He made web slings to help injured slayers move without pain. And every day, he kept asking the same question. Who do I report to when I see something dangerous? The answer was always the same. Stairs. Shinobu found him in a small side room, staring at his web shooter parts laid out like a puzzle. She leaned against the doorframe. You are restless. Peter didn't look up. You are observant. Shinobu smiled. Your jokes are defensive. Peter glanced at her. Your smile is suspicious. Shinobu's smile got wider. That hurts. Peter pointed at the parts. I need materials, metal, chemicals. I need a space to test, and I need someone to stop looking at me like I might eat them. Shinobu stepped closer, looking at his gear. This is very advanced. Peter shrugged. It's not magic. It's just time, effort, and being broke enough that you learn how to fix your own stuff. Shinobu's eyes narrowed. Broke? Peter hesitated. Long story. Shinobu tapped a finger lightly on one part. What do you want to build? Peter took a breath. A way to help you end demons without me having to, you know. Shinobu tilted her head. Kill. Peter's shoulders tightened. Yeah. Shinobu looked at him for a long second. Then she spoke softly. You truly cannot. Peter met her eyes. I can fight. I can hold them. I can break bones if I have to. He swallowed. But if I cross that line on purpose, I don't know if I come back from it. Shinobu's voice stayed gentle. Many of us already crossed it. Peter nodded. I know. I'm not judging you. Shinobu studied him like a scientist studying a strange new plant. Then she said, there is a way your rule can still help us. Peter's head lifted. Yeah? Shinobu pointed at the webbing strand he had left, stuck to a beam. You restrain. Peter nodded slowly. Shinobu's smile returned. And I poison. Peter blinked. Okay, that sounded way cuter than it is. Shinobu's smile did not change. Thank you. Peter rubbed the back of his head. I'm not poisoning anyone. Shinobu's eyes narrowed. Not humans. Peter stared. He didn't like poison, but he also didn't like children being eaten alive. He looked down at his hands. He could build things that held demons long enough for sunrise, or long enough for a blade. That was still his style. Rescue, restraint, control. Not execution. Shinobu leaned closer. If you want materials, I can provide some, but you will need help beyond me. Peter's voice got serious. Tamayo. Shinobu's eyes widened a fraction. Tanjiro told you. Peter nodded. I want to meet her. Shinobu watched him carefully. That is dangerous. Peter's mask lenses narrowed. Yeah, I know. But if there's even a chance at a cure, I'm not ignoring it. Shinobu sighed softly. Very well. Peter blinked. Wait, that's it? No 3-hour speech? Shinobu smiled. I like experiments too. Peter paused. You scare me. Shinobu bowed slightly. Good. A few nights later, Peter moved through a city street that felt like a painting. Paper lanterns swayed. Wooden buildings lined narrow roads. People wore old clothing and walked like they had all the time in the world. Peter stayed on rooftops, crouched low, moving like he was back in his own city. But he wasn't. There were no police sirens, no neon signs, no traffic. Only soft voices and the smell of smoke, food, and fear hiding under it all. Tanjiro moved on the rooftops too, quieter than Peter expected. For a kid, he was ridiculously good at it. Peter glanced at him. So we're meeting a secret demon doctor in the middle of a city. This is fine. Tanjiro whispered, "Please be careful." Peter whispered back, "My middle name is Careful." Tanjiro blinked. "It is?" Peter sighed. "No, it's not." That was sarcasm. "Never mind." They reached an alley. Tanjiro paused and sniffed the air. Peter could tell when Tanjiro did that. It wasn't for drama. It was real. Tanjiro's voice lowered. "She's close." A gentle voice came from the shadows. "Tanjiro." A woman stepped forward. She looked calm. Her eyes were kind. She wore a simple kimono. Behind her stood a young man with a focused stare. Peter's spider sense buzzed hard. Not because they felt evil, because they felt dangerous in a different way. Like a scalpel. Tanjiro bowed. "Lady Tamayo." Tamayo's gaze moved to Peter's mask. Peter lifted 2 fingers in a small wave. "Hi." Tamayo's expression stayed calm. "So you are the one." Peter's shoulders stiffened. "I'm guessing word travels fast." Tamayo nodded. "It does. When someone new appears on the board." Peter blinked. "Board?" Tamayo's eyes softened. "A game. Muzan plays it." Peter felt his stomach tighten. Tamayo continued. "Your presence has already pulled attention." Peter sighed. "Yeah, that's kind of my thing." The young man behind Tamayo stepped forward slightly. "If you are a threat, I will end you." Peter's spider sense spiked. Peter held up a hand. "Okay, buddy. Respectfully, take a number." Tanjiro hurried. "This is Yushiro. He is protecting Lady Tamayo." Peter glanced at Yushiro. "Cool. Protective friend. Love that. Very relatable." Tamayo studied Peter closely. "You are not a demon." Peter nodded. "Correct." Tamayo's gaze shifted to his wrists. "Your webbing is artificial." Peter paused. "Yes. Also correct." Tamayo stepped closer, eyes sharp. "And you refuse to kill." Peter's chest tightened. "I'm trying." Tamayo nodded slowly, like she respected the honesty. "Then we may be able to help each other." Peter's head lifted. "That's what I'm hoping." Tamayo spoke softly. "I seek a cure." Peter felt heat behind his eyes. He didn't let it show. He just nodded. "Me too." Tamayo's expression stayed gentle. "But understand something, Spider-Man." Peter stiffened at the name. He hadn't introduced himself. Tamayo noticed his reaction. "Muzan's demons talk. I listen." Peter exhaled. "Great. Fantastic. Love the privacy here." Tamayo continued, "Muzan will want you. Your blood may contain things he cannot create." Peter's jaw tightened. "Then he's going to be disappointed." Tamayo looked at him. "He is rarely disappointed. He is patient." Peter stared at her. "So we don't give him time?" Tamayo nodded. "Exactly." Peter leaned forward slightly. "I want to build tools. I want to help the Slayers end demons faster. I want restraints that hold even upper ranks." Yushiro scoffed. "That's impossible." Peter glanced at him. "I've heard impossible before." Tamayo's eyes narrowed with interest. "What kind of tools?" Peter took out a web cartridge and held it carefully. "My webbing is strong, but demons like Akaza rip it. I need something that bites back." Tanjiro frowned. "Bites back?" Peter spoke slowly, choosing words that fit. "Nichiren. Sun metal. If I can weave tiny Nichiren edges into my web lines, then a demon tearing through could get hurt, slowed, pinned." Tamayo's eyes sharpened. "A trap." Peter nodded. "A trap, a restraint, a bridge between my style and yours." Tamayo looked at Tanjiro. "And you trust him?" Tanjiro answered without hesitation. "Yes." Peter blinked behind the mask. That trust still felt too big. Tamayo turned back to Peter. "I can help you test demon tissue reactions safely." Peter's voice got quiet. "And the cure?" Tamayo's expression softened. "If your body resists demon influence in any way, it may teach us something." Peter froze slightly. "Demon influence?" Tamayo nodded. "Muzan can change humans. He can twist them into demons." Peter's stomach dropped. He had assumed it was like a bite infection. but hearing it spoken like that made it feel worse. Peter forced himself to breathe. Then we make sure he never touches me. Tamayo's gaze stayed steady. And we make sure he cannot touch those you care about. Peter didn't answer. He didn't want to admit he already cared. When they returned to the mansion, the next meeting was not friendly. It was sharp. Hashira gathered again. Shinobu spoke quietly to Kagaya. Sanemi looked ready to explode. Tomioka stood like a wall. Peter stood in front of them like he was in court. Kagaya's voice was gentle. "You met Tamayo?" Peter nodded. "Yes." Sanemi slammed his hand down. "You met a demon." Peter's head snapped. "A demon who saves people." Sanemi's eyes burned. "A demon is a demon." Tanjiro spoke quickly. "Lady Tamayo does not eat humans. She hates Muzan." Sanemi snarled. "And you think that matters when she snaps?" Peter stepped forward a half step. His spider sense buzzed, but he didn't let it steer him. "What matters," Peter said firmly, "is she has knowledge, and you are fighting a war. You don't win a war by refusing every weapon that scares you." Sanemi's hand went to his sword. Tomioka shifted slightly. Shinobu's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. Peter held his ground. "I'm not asking you to trust her blindly. I'm asking you to be smart." Sanemi's voice dropped. "Dangerous. Smart is cutting threats before they grow." Peter's voice went cold. "And if you cut every threat that looks different, you will end up alone." The room went silent. Even Sanemi paused. Kagaya's gaze stayed calm. "Spider-Man, you speak with conviction." Peter exhaled. "Because I've seen what fear does. It makes people do stupid things." Sanemi snapped. "We are not stupid." Peter shot back. "Then stop acting like a scared mob." Tomioka's voice cut in, calm but hard. "Enough." Peter's chest rose and fell. He realized he had pushed too far. He forced himself to step back and lower his tone. "I'm sorry," Peter said, "but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't care what happens to people." Kagaya nodded once. "We know." He turned his head slightly. "And that is why you are still standing here." Peter swallowed. Kagaya continued. "Your idea, the trap, the Nichiren web." Peter nodded quickly, grateful for the shift. It could work. Not perfectly, not instantly, but it could help. Shinobu's eyes brightened. "If we can produce it." Peter nodded. "I need certain materials, metal, a smith, maybe someone who understands how Nichiren is forged." Tomioka's gaze narrowed. "Swordsmith village." Peter blinked. "You have a whole village for that?" Tanjiro nodded. "Yes." Peter stared for a second. "Okay. That's honestly amazing." Sanemi muttered. "He talks too much." Peter glanced at him. "That's fair." Kagaya's voice stayed calm. "You will not go there yet." Peter tensed. "Why?" Kagaya answered simply, "Too dangerous, too secret." Peter's hands clenched again, then relaxed. "Then how do I build anything?" Shinobu spoke. "There are other routes, other sources." Tanjiro added, "There is a district in the city. Many demons hide there." Peter blinked. "A demon hotspot." Tanjiro nodded. "Yes." Shinobu's eyes slid to Peter. "Also, there is someone who will be there soon." Peter frowned. "Who?" A loud voice echoed from the hallway outside. "Someone flashy." The door slid open. A tall man with white hair, jewels, and a confident grin stepped in like he owned the room. He moved like a warrior and a performer at the same time. Peter stared. The man pointed at him. "So you're the masked rumor." Peter lifted a hand. "Hi." The man walked closer, looked Peter up and down, then nodded once. "You're strange." Peter nodded back. "You're sparkly." The man grinned. "I'm Tengen Uzui." Peter's mask lenses narrowed. "Are you always like this?" Tengen threw his arms wide. "Always." Peter glanced at Tanjiro. "Is this normal?" Tanjiro whispered, "He is a Hashira." Peter whispered back, "That's worse." Tengen leaned in slightly. "I have a mission, and I need help." Shinobu spoke calmly. The entertainment district. Peter's spider sense buzzed again. He didn't like the sound of that place already. Tengen's grin sharpened. Demons hiding among crowds. People disappearing. If the masked hero wants to prove he's useful, this is the place. Peter sighed. You know, in my world, prove you're useful usually comes with a badge and a paycheck. Tengen blinked. Paycheck? Peter looked around. Never mind. Kagaya's voice stayed gentle. Spider-Man, go with Uzui. Protect civilians. Do not act alone. Peter nodded. I can do that. Sanemi muttered. If he dies, good. Peter turned his head slightly. If I die, you still have paperwork. Sanemi stared. What? Peter shrugged. It's a metaphor. Don't worry about it. The entertainment district looked alive at night. That was the problem. Lantern light, music, laughing, people walking close together, shops open, doors sliding and closing, smiles on faces that didn't know what waited in the dark behind them. Peter crouched on a rooftop, staring down at the crowds. He hated crowds in a fight. Crowds meant mistakes became tragedies. Tengen stood beside him, also on the roof, balanced like it was nothing. Behind them, Tanjiro climbed up, followed by two others. One was a boy with messy hair and a wild stare, wearing a boar mask. The other was a blonde boy whose face was already pale with fear. Peter stared. Okay, new people. Tanjiro whispered, This is Inosuke. And Zenitsu. Zenitsu looked at Peter's mask and froze. Ah. Tanjiro slapped a hand over Zenitsu's mouth. Peter's mask lenses narrowed. Is he always like that? Inosuke stepped forward, chest puffed out. I'm going to fight the mask man. Peter held up a hand. No, you're not. Inosuke pointed at him. Yes, I am. Peter sighed. Buddy, please, I'm not the demon. Inosuke tilted his head. Then why do you look like a demon? Peter pointed at the boar mask. Pot, kettle. Inosuke paused, confused. Zenitsu's eyes watered. We're going to die. We're going to die. Peter glanced at Tanjiro. And this is your team. Tanjiro whispered. They are strong. Peter watched Zenitsu shake like a leaf. I'm sure. Tengen clapped his hands once. Focus. My wives were here. They were gathering info. They stopped sending messages. Peter's head lifted. Your wives? Tengen nodded like it was normal. Yes. Peter blinked. Okay. Different culture. Got it. Tengen pointed toward different areas. We split. We search. Quietly. Peter frowned. Quietly? I'm wearing a mask and bright colors. Tengen smirked. Try harder. Peter sighed, then looked down at the crowds again. His spider sense buzzed low, like a warning that never stopped. Then it spiked. Hard? Peter snapped his head toward a rooftop across the street. For a blink, he saw movement like a ribbon cutting the air. Something fast, something sharp. His spider sense screamed again. Down! Peter shouted. Tengen moved instantly, grabbing Tanjiro and pulling him off the roof edge into a controlled drop. Peter fired a web line and yanked Inosuke down too. Zenitsu screamed as he fell. A ribbon sliced through the roof where they had been. Wood split like paper. Peter landed on the wall of a building, clinging sideways. Tengen landed lightly on the street. Tanjiro rolled and got up. Inosuke popped up like nothing happened, already excited. Zenitsu lay on the ground, face down. I'm dead. Peter looked up. A woman stood on the rooftop across from them. She wore a beautiful outfit. Her hair was styled neatly. Her eyes were not human. She smiled, slow and cruel. Peter's spider sense buzzed like it hated her. Tengen's voice dropped. Serious now. Upper rank. Peter's stomach tightened. Not again. The woman's voice was sweet. You brought such interesting guests. Her long sashes moved behind her like living snakes. Peter's eyes narrowed. Okay, ribbon lady, not a fan. Tanjiro's face tightened. Daki. Daki laughed softly. You know my name, how cute. Her sashes snapped forward like blades. Peter moved first. He shot webs to grab the sashes midair and yank them off course. The webbing stuck, then the sash cut through it. Peter's eyes widened. Oh, come on. The sash slashed toward the street, aiming at a group of civilians. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter dove, arms wide, and tackled 2 people behind a wooden post. The sash cut the post in half. People screamed and ran. Peter jumped up and shouted, "Inside! Everyone inside! Get off the street!" The crowd didn't know who to listen to. They only knew fear. Tengen moved like a storm, sword flashing, cutting sashes out of the air. Tanjiro sprinted toward another group of civilians, guiding them toward a doorway. Inosuke charged straight at Daki, yelling something loud and wild. Zenitsu crawled behind a barrel, whispering prayers. Peter shot web lines to rooftops and swung above the street, trying to pull attention away from the civilians. Daki's eyes followed him. Her smile grew. "You're fast," she said. Peter swung down and kicked one sash away from a child's face. "Thanks." Daki's sashes split into many, attacking from different angles. Peter's spider sense went insane. He dodged 3 at once, bent backward, flipped, stuck to a wall, then leaped again. But there were too many. He couldn't block all of them. So he did what he always did. He protected the people first. He shot webs to grab people's waists and pull them into doorways. He webbed doors shut behind them, not to trap them, but to stop them from running back out. He created web lines like ropes for people to grab, guiding them across gaps and away from fallen beams. One sash sliced a building corner, and the roof began to collapse. Peter's spider sense screamed. He shot a web to the roof beam, swung up, and caught the falling edge with both hands. The weight slammed into his arms. His muscles strained, but he held. He braced his feet against the wall and pushed, lifting the roof just enough for people to crawl out. Dust rained down. Someone screamed from inside. Peter's voice came out strained. "Go, go, go, go." Tanjiro rushed in, pulling a child free. Tenjin cut a sash that tried to slip through the doorway and kill them. Peter shoved the roof back into place as gently as he could, then webbed it up like a net, anchoring it to 3 buildings. It held. Barely. He dropped to the street, breathing hard. Daki watched him like he was a show. "You save them like they matter." Peter snapped. "They do matter." Daki laughed. "How delicious." Tenjin's voice cut in. "Spider-Man, stop talking." Peter glanced at him. "She started it." Tengen swung, blade flashing, aiming for Daki's neck. Daki's sash blocked the sword with a sharp clang. She slid backward, still smiling. Then her smile faded a fraction, because Peter had fired a web behind her. He yanked. Daki's feet slipped. For half a second, her balance broke. Tenjin's sword came in again. Daki jerked away at the last moment, and the blade only grazed her neck. Her head didn't come off, but blood sprayed. Peter's eyes widened. Daki's eyes went wide too. Not with fear, with rage. "You," she hissed. Her sashes exploded outward in a wave. Peter's spider sense screamed. He jumped, but one sash caught his ankle and yanked. He slammed into a wall hard enough to crack wood. Pain flashed up his leg. Peter gritted his teeth. Daki's sash tightened around his ankle like a snake trying to crush bone. Peter reached down, grabbed it, and pulled. The sash didn't tear like cloth. It fought back. Peter pulled harder. With a sharp snap, the sash ripped. Daki's eyes widened, shocked. Peter stared at the torn piece in his hand. "Okay, good news. You can break." Daki's face twisted. "You will regret that." The torn sash wriggled in Peter's grip like it was alive. Peter's spider sense buzzed. He threw it away fast and webbed it to the ground. Tenjin shouted, "Her sashes are part of her body." Peter blinked. "That's disgusting." Inosuke yelled happily. "That's awesome." Zenitsu screamed. "That's horrifying." Peter shot a web line, grabbed a fallen wooden cart, and swung it like a shield to block a wave of sashes cutting toward the crowd. Wood splintered instantly. Peter cursed under his breath. "Okay, that shield lasted 0 seconds. Tanjiro shouted, "There are still people inside." Peter's head snapped toward a tall building where lantern lights still flickered behind paper walls. He heard muffled crying. His spider sense screamed. Daki's sashes were already moving that way. Peter moved faster than thought. He sprinted up the wall, burst through a paper screen, and froze. Inside were women huddled together, eyes wide. Peter held up both hands. "Hi. Sorry. Not a demon. Please don't scream." They screamed anyway. Peter sighed. Fair. He shot webs to the ceiling beams and made a quick web net above them like a shield. A sash sliced through the outer wall. The web net caught it. The sash cut into the webbing, but the layers slowed it. Peter yanked the sash sideways, slammed it into a beam, and webbed it tight. He turned to the women. "Back room. Now. Stay low. If you run outside, you will die." That got through. They moved. Peter guided them to the back, then jumped out through the broken wall again, landing on the street just as Daki's sashes whipped around. Tenjin's voice was sharp. "We need to cut her head." Peter shouted back. "We're trying." Daki's smile returned, cruel again. "You can try all night." Peter's spider sense buzzed low. Then it hit a sharp spike so painful he almost flinched. Something was coming. From behind Daki. From inside her. The air changed. A smell hit Tanjiro like a punch. His face went pale. No. Daki's body shuddered. Then her back split, and another figure rose out like a nightmare crawling out of a shadow. A man with sickles, a grin too wide, eyes that burned with hatred. Peter's spider sense screamed like it had been waiting for this. The man's voice was rough and pleased. I was getting bored. Tenjin's face tightened. "Gyutaro." Peter's stomach dropped. 2 upper ranks. In one crowded district, with civilians everywhere. Peter's mind raced. This wasn't just a fight. This was a disaster waiting to happen. Gyutaro lifted his sickle, and Peter's spider sense went off like a bomb. Peter moved. Gyutaro's sickle cut the air where Peter had been a blink before. The sickle hit a wall behind, and the wall cracked like it was hit by a hammer. Peter landed on a rooftop edge, breathing hard. Gyutaro looked up at him, eyes bright. "You dodge before I strike." Peter's jaw tightened. "Yeah, I hate it too." Gyutaro laughed. "Good." He threw his sickles. They spun like saw blades, slicing through air, aiming for the street where people were still running. Peter shot webs fast, catching one sickle mid-spin. The force yanked his arm so hard it felt like it might tear out. Peter grunted, dug his feet into the roof, and held it. The sickle tried to pull free, like it had a mind. Peter yanked back and webbed it to a chimney. It stuck. Gyutaro blinked, surprised. Peter didn't give him time. He fired 2 webs at Gyutaro's chest and yanked, trying to slam him off the roof. Gyutaro's feet dug in. He didn't budge. Peter's eyes widened. "Okay, you're also very strong." "Great." Daki's sashes snapped toward Tanjiro and Tengen below. Gyutaro's sickles swung toward Peter. Peter's spider sense screamed from 2 directions. Peter made a choice. He let go of Gyutaro and dropped. He swung down, grabbed Tanjiro by the back of his haori, and yanked him out of the path of a sash. The sash sliced the ground where Tanjiro had been. Tanjiro gasped. "Thank you." Peter didn't answer. He was already moving again, because Gyutaro's sickle was coming. It cut across Peter's shoulder. Pain flashed hot. Peter hissed and twisted away. Then he felt something worse. A cold burn spreading from the cut. His spider sense buzzed, but his body felt heavier. Peter's eyes widened behind the mask. "Poison." Tenjin shouted, "Don't let him cut you." Peter snapped. "Little late." Gyutaro grinned. "You're marked now." Peter's muscles tensed, fighting the strange weakness. His healing factor kicked in, trying to push the poison out. But it didn't vanish. It slowed him. Just a little. And in fights like this, a little could be fatal. Peter forced his body to move anyway. He shot webs to street poles and built a fast web barrier between the demons and the crowd. Sashes cut at it, sickles cut at it. The barrier didn't last, but it bought seconds. Peter shouted, "Everyone inside! Now!" Tenjin sprinted through the street, grabbing people and shoving them into doorways with blunt speed. Tanjiro guided others, voice loud and steady, keeping panic from turning into a stampede. Inosuke charged Gyutaro, screaming, and got thrown through a wooden sign like he was a toy. Zenitsu screamed, then went silent. Peter glanced and saw Zenitsu's eyes closed. Zenitsu's body shifted. His fear vanished. He moved like lightning, blade flashing. Peter blinked. Okay, that's new. Tengen yelled. Focus. Peter snapped back. Gyutaro and Daki moved together now, like they were one machine. Daki's sashes forced openings. Gyutaro's sickles punished those openings. Peter's spider sense screamed non-stop. He could dodge. He could survive. But with poison slowing him, the margin was shrinking. Peter fired webs toward Daki's sashes again, but this time he did something different. He didn't try to hold the sash. He tried to jam it. He fired thick web blobs directly at the points where the sashes bent and snapped. The sticky mass clung like glue. Daki's sash jerked, slowed, and twisted awkwardly. Daki's eyes widened, furious. Tengen saw the opening. He surged in, sword flashing. Daki blocked, but she was half a beat slower. The blade cut deeper this time. Daki screamed. Gyutaro's eyes went wide with rage. He lunged at Tengen. Peter moved between them without thinking. Gyutaro's sickle swung for Tengen's neck. Peter caught the sickle with both hands. The metal bit into his gloves, but he held. The force was huge. Peter's arms shook. Gyutaro grinned, leaning in. You're strong. Peter's voice was tight. Yeah, and you're gross. Gyutaro yanked the sickle, trying to tear Peter's arms open. Peter pulled back, then twisted his body and slammed his foot into Gyutaro's chest. Gyutaro flew back a few steps. Peter staggered. The poison pulsed again, making his vision blur for a second. Peter breathed hard. Tengen stared at him briefly, shocked. You just took that. Peter grunted. Don't hype me up. Right now. Tanjiro shouted. We have to cut both heads at the same time. Peter's head snapped. What? Tengen's face tightened. Yes. If one dies and the other lives, they won't end. Peter's stomach sank. 2 targets. Same moment. In chaos. In a crowded district. Peter's brain screamed. Impossible. Then another part of him answered. Then, we make it possible. Peter's mask lenses narrowed. Okay, Peter said, voice low. Then we need a setup, not a chase. He looked around fast. He saw a wide street leading to a plaza. He saw tall buildings with strong beams. He saw lantern posts. He saw roofs he could web between. He also saw the sky. It was still deep night. But night did not last forever. Peter turned to Tanjiro and Tengen. Can you hold them for 1 minute? Tengen blinked. 1 minute? Peter nodded, already firing webs. He shot lines across rooftops, connecting buildings. He made a web corridor above the street, like a tunnel. He webbed lampposts to walls so they wouldn't fall when smashed. He created thick web pads on the ground at key spots, like traps for feet. His hands moved fast. His mind moved faster. The poison made his fingers feel heavy, but adrenaline and will forced them to keep working. Daki saw what he was doing and laughed. You think strings can stop us? Peter snapped. They don't stop you. They slow you. Gyutaro lunged. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter dodged, but slower. The sickle grazed his side. More poison. Peter's breath hitched. He forced himself not to panic. He could not afford panic. He fired a web to Gyutaro's ankle and yanked. Gyutaro stumbled half a step. Inosuke slammed into Gyutaro from the side like a wild animal. Zenitsu flashed past Daki, blade-cutting sashes. Tanjiro pushed forward, eyes focused, fighting through fear. Tengen moved like thunder, keeping pressure on both demons, forcing them toward the plaza. Peter moved with them, guiding the battlefield with his web lines. Over here, Peter shouted like a rude crossing guard. Tengen actually laughed once. Flashy. Peter shot back. Stop complimenting me and cut someone. Daki's sashes cut at the web corridor above. Peter made it thicker. Gyutaro threw sickles upward to cut the web anchors. Peter replaced them. They were tearing his setup apart, but not fast enough. They reached the plaza. Peter yanked a web line. A thick sheet of web dropped like a curtain behind the demons, blocking their retreat path for a moment. Gyutaro's eyes narrowed. A cage. Peter's voice was strained. Yeah, temporary. Daki's sashes whipped toward Tanjiro. Peter jumped in front. A sash cut his forearm. Pain flashed. Peter hissed, then shoved the sash aside with raw strength. His arm burned with poison, but he did not let it stop him. He looked at Tanjiro. Now. Tanjiro's eyes widened. What? Peter grabbed Tanjiro's shoulder and yanked him sideways, placing him where Daki's neck would be if she lunged forward. Then Peter shot a web line to Daki's waist and yanked her toward that spot. Daki shrieked in anger as she was pulled off balance. Tanjiro's blade flashed. It cut. Daki's head almost came off. Almost. But Gyutaro's sickle slammed into Tanjiro's blade, knocking it aside at the last fraction of a second. The cut wasn't enough. Daki's neck healed fast. Tanjiro stumbled, breath shaking. Peter's chest tightened. So close. Gyutaro laughed. Cruel. You can't do it. Peter's vision blurred again. His body felt heavy, like he was sinking. He had taken too many poison cuts. He knew it. He forced himself to stay upright anyway. He looked at Tengen. We need one clean moment. Tengen's jaw clenched. I know. Then Tengen did something bold. He stopped defending. He attacked. He charged straight at Gyutaro, taking the risk, drawing all attention. Gyutaro grinned like he loved it. Their blades clashed, sparks and metal ringing. Daki moved to help Gyutaro. And that was the moment. Zenitsu flashed in like lightning, cutting sashes to block Daki's path. Inosuke slammed into Daki from behind, pinning her for half a second. Tanjiro stepped in, blade ready. Peter saw it. His spider sense screamed. His body moved. Peter fired a web line at Daki's neck and pulled her head backward, exposing it cleanly. Tanjiro swung. This time, the blade cut deeper. Daki screamed. At the same time, Tengen twisted, blade flashing toward Gyutaro's neck. But Gyutaro jerked away at the last moment, like his instincts screamed too. The cut missed by a breath. Not enough. Not simultaneous. Daki's head did not fully come free, and Gyutaro still lived. The demons howled, furious. Gyutaro kicked Tengen back. Daki's sashes exploded outward in rage, shredding web lines and slicing the air. Peter's web corridor snapped apart. His trap collapsed. Peter felt the poison surge again. His legs almost buckled. He caught himself on a wall with one hand. Tanjiro's eyes were wide with frustration and fear. Tengen stared at Gyutaro, breathing heavy. Gyutaro's grin widened. Almost. Daki's eyes burned. We will rip you apart. Peter forced himself to stand straight, even as his body screamed to drop. His voice came out rough. Yeah, I get it. You're very dramatic. The demons didn't finish them. Not because they couldn't. Because the first hint of dawn began to lighten the far edge of the sky. Gyutaro's eyes flicked toward it. Daki hissed, angry. They both retreated at once, slipping into the shadows like water. Peter fired webs after them, but his hands were slow now. The webs missed. The demons vanished. The plaza fell silent except for the sounds of people sobbing behind closed doors. Peter leaned against a wall. His breathing was harsh. His arm and side burned. Tengen stepped toward him, eyes sharp. You're poisoned. Peter nodded, too tired to joke. Tanjiro moved closer, panicked. Spider-Man. Peter held up a hand. I'm okay. He wasn't. Not fully. But he was alive. And so were the civilians. That mattered. Peter's vision blurred again, and he slid down to sit, back against the wall. Tengen crouched near him, studying him like a warrior looking at another warrior. You kept them busy. You saved people. That's not nothing. Peter's mask lenses angled toward him. Was that respect? Tenjin smirked. Don't get used to it. Peter gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Tanjiro looked like he might cry. We failed. Peter's voice was hoarse. No, we didn't. Tanjiro blinked. Peter pointed weakly toward the doors. The hidden people. They're alive. That's a win. Tanjiro's hands clenched, but the demons escaped. Peter nodded slowly. Yeah, that's the part I hate. Tengen stood. This changes things. Peter's head tilted slightly. How? Tengen looked out over the damaged plaza. Upper ranks don't show themselves like this unless something shifts. Peter's stomach tightened. He already knew the answer. I shifted it. Somewhere in the shadows far away, a pair of demons nursed anger and planned revenge. Somewhere deeper, Muzan heard the report. A masked human who saved people like it was breathing. A masked human who wouldn't kill. A masked human who was learning. Muzan smiled in the dark, calm and certain. The new piece had survived its first real test. That meant it was worth taking seriously. And that meant the next move would not be a simple fight. It would be personal. Back in the plaza, Peter closed his eyes for a second, fighting the poison with every breath. He didn't know how long he would last in this world. But he knew one thing with full clarity. If he stayed, he couldn't just be a visitor. He had to become part of the war. Not by becoming a killer, by becoming something else. A shield. A trap. A warning. A way to keep people alive long enough for the sun to rise. Where little inside its side. The poison did not leave Peter's body like a switch turning off. It left like a storm, walking away slowly, one step at a time. For 2 days, his muscles felt heavy. His thoughts felt delayed. His spider sense still warned him, but his body did not always answer fast enough. That scared him more than the pain. He woke up in a clean room at the Butterfly Mansion, with bandages on his side and forearm. The mask sat on a table nearby like it was a living thing that had finally gone quiet. Shinobu stood by the window, hands folded behind her back, smiling like she always did. Peter stared at the ceiling. So, I'm alive. Shinobu's smile didn't change. Unfortunately. Peter turned his head toward her. That was a joke, right? Shinobu tilted her head. Was it? Peter groaned. You are the worst. She stepped closer and lifted a small cup. The liquid inside was dark and smelled sharp. Drink, she said. Peter's mask wasn't on, so she could see his face now. His eyes narrowed, and he leaned away. Nope, he said. I'm not drinking mystery liquid from the Smiling Sword Doctor. Shinobu's eyes softened a little. Lady Tamayo helped make it. Peter paused. Okay, that helps. A little. He sat up slowly, took the cup, and drank. It tasted bitter. His stomach complained. He handed it back and made a face. I miss pizza. Shinobu blinked. Pizza? Peter waved his hand weakly. Never mind. Round bread. Happiness. It's fine. Shinobu checked his bandages. Your body is resisting the poison better than most. Peter's brow furrowed. Most humans? Shinobu nodded. Most anything. Peter stared at his own hands. He hated that his body was special. Special meant targeted. Shinobu spoke again, voice calm. Your mask was damaged. Peter reached toward the table. The mask had a thin crack along one lens edge. Not enough to break it fully, but enough to remind him how close he had been. He touched the crack like it hurt. Shinobu watched him. Why do you hide your face? Peter didn't answer right away. Then he said, because if people know who I am, they come for the people I love. Shinobu's smile faded to something more honest. That is wise. Peter let out a breath. Yeah. It's also lonely. Shinobu didn't comment on that. She only stood, quiet, like she was letting the silence do its job. After a moment, Peter spoke again, softer. Did anyone see my face? Shinobu's eyes stayed steady. Only me. And Lady Tamayo. Medical reasons. Peter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Okay. Shinobu lifted one finger. And Tanjiro. Peter froze. What? Shinobu's voice was gentle, but sharp. You pulled your mask off when you could not breathe well from the poison. He was carrying you. Peter looked away fast. In his chest, embarrassment and fear hit at the same time. Did he? Peter started. Shinobu answered before he could finish. He did not speak of it. He only asked if you were going to live. Peter swallowed hard. Of course he did. Shinobu's smile returned. Smaller now. You chose a good person to trust by accident. Peter gave a weak laugh. Yeah, my favorite kind of plan. A week passed. Then, too, Peter's body recovered, but the feeling did not. The feeling that he was standing in a world where he couldn't win the way he was used to winning. So Peter did what he always did when the world didn't make sense. He built a new way to fight it. The butterfly mansion got louder during the day, mostly because Peter kept dragging things into the yard. Planks, nails, buckets, pots, old metal pieces, anything he could test with. He made web lines at different thickness levels. He tested how long they held under strain. He tested how fast he could shoot, how far he could anchor, how quickly he could make a net. Then he tested what happened when he added something new. Nichiren. He didn't have a full sword. He didn't want one. He wasn't going to pretend he was a swordsman. But Shinobu found him thin scraps, tiny shavings, pieces no one would miss. Peter stared at the gray-black metal and whispered, "Sun metal." Shinobu folded her arms. "Do not call it that." Peter looked at her. "But it's cool." Shinobu's smile turned smug. "You are not cool." Peter sighed and got back to work. He made a web strand, then carefully pressed a line of fine Nichiren filings into it before it fully hardened. He tried again with different spacing, different patterns, different layers. Most attempts failed. The metal fell out. The web tore. The strand snapped under stress. But one day, he made a line that held. It wasn't a blade. It wasn't sharp enough to cut a head off, but it had teeth. He pulled it across a thick piece of wood, and the wood scratched deep. He wrapped it around a training dummy, and the surface ripped under tension. Peter looked up at Tanjiro, who was watching with wide eyes. "This isn't a sword," Peter said. "But if a demon rips through it, it's going to hurt." Tanjiro's voice was quiet. "It could slow them." Peter nodded. "That's the point. Slow, hold, create openings." Tenjin watched from a roof edge above them, arms crossed, flashy. Peter glanced up. "Stop saying that like it's a religion." Tenjin grinned. "It is." Peter pointed at him. "You need help." Tengen nodded proudly. "Yes." The routine became real. By day, Peter helped with repairs in nearby towns. He fixed roofs. He carried beams. He webbed broken bridges long enough for people to cross. He left before people could ask too many questions. By night, he went on missions with slayers. He didn't lead them. He wasn't in charge. But he became something they could rely on. When a demon attacked from behind, Peter's spider sense caught it. A warning shout saved a life. When a demon tried to flee, Peter's webs pinned it to a wall long enough for a blade to finish the job. When civilians were trapped, Peter reached them first. He started making reports after missions, not because anyone asked, because his brain needed order. He created a stack of paper with neat headings. Demon incident report. Location. Time. Civilian injuries. Demon abilities observed. What worked? What failed? Recommendation. Tanjiro filled one out carefully, trying his best. Tenjin drew a giant star on his and wrote, "Flashy success." Shinobu smiled politely and wrote a long list of corrections in tiny handwriting that made Peter's eye twitch. Tomioka stared at the paper for a full minute, then handed it back blank. Peter frowned. "You didn't fill it out." Tomioka answered. "Calm. I remember." Peter stared at him. "That's not the point." Tomioka blinked once. "It is for me." Peter pinched the bridge of his nose. "You are going to be the reason I lose my mind." Tomioka's face stayed flat. "You already are losing it." Tanjiro covered his mouth to hide a small laugh. Peter looked at Tanjiro. "Don't encourage him." But something was changing under the jokes. Trust was being built the hard way. Blood. Fear. Small wins. And Peter could feel eyes on him that did not belong to the Corps. Sometimes, on rooftops, he caught a shadow moving wrong. Sometimes, on missions, he smelled something rotten under the clean night air. Tanjiro noticed too. One night, after they returned, Tanjiro spoke to Peter on the mansion roof. "The demons are talking about you," Tanjiro said. Peter sat with knees up, mask on. Cracked lens repaired as best as he could. Good talk or bad talk? Tanjiro's brows knit. Hungry talk. Peter went quiet. Tanjiro looked at him carefully. "Do you want to go home?" Peter's chest tightened. He didn't answer fast, because the answer was a trap even inside his own head. Yes, he wanted home. He wanted his city, his people, his life. But home also meant leaving this world behind, with demons still hunting it every night. Peter finally said, "I want people to be safe." Tanjiro nodded. "Me too." Peter looked at the stars. "If I can help you get closer to that, then I can't just run." Tanjiro's voice got softer. "Even if you never return?" Peter's throat tightened. He forced a small joke out anyway, because that's how he survived heavy feelings. "Well," he said, "I still haven't found the person who handles interdimensional travel paperwork, so..." Tanjiro blinked. "Paperwork?" Peter sighed. "Forget it." Tanjiro smiled gently. "I think you use jokes when you are scared." Peter looked at him. "Yeah." Tanjiro's smile faded a little. "I'm scared too. But we keep moving." Peter nodded, and for a moment, he felt less alone. Muzan moved like poison. He didn't rush. He spread. He waited until the moment that would hurt most. The night he chose was quiet. No big mission, no loud fight, no screaming town. Just a message. A simple thing. Delivered the way demons delivered all things. With blood. A young slayer stumbled into the butterfly mansion yard just before dawn, pale and shaking. A cut on his arm dripped onto the stones. Peter landed beside him in a blur. "Hey," Peter said, voice urgent. "Hey, look at me. You're okay. Breathe." The slayer tried. His eyes were wide and empty with fear. He said, the slayer whispered. Peter's spider sense buzzed hard. "Who?" The slayer's voice cracked. "The one, the king." Shinobu rushed in, checking the wound. Tenjin arrived next, blade ready, like he expected an enemy to appear inside the yard itself. Tanjiro stepped up, eyes sharp. What did he say? The slayer's lips trembled. He said, "The masked man will come if he wants to go home." Peter froze so hard it felt like his bones locked. Shinobu's eyes lifted toward him. Tenjin's expression turned serious. Tanjiro's face went pale. "Muzan." Peter's mouth felt dry behind the mask. "How did he?" Peter started. Then he stopped. Because the answer was simple. Muzan watched. Muzan listened. Muzan learned. Peter forced his voice steady. "Where?" The slayer swallowed. "An old shrine outside the city." He said, "Come alone." Tengen snapped, "No." Shinobu's voice stayed calm. "It is a trap." Peter nodded slowly. "Yeah, obviously." Tanjiro stepped closer. "Then we don't go." Peter looked at Tanjiro. And for the first time since he arrived in this world, Peter didn't know what the right answer was. If he didn't go, Muzan would still be out there. If he did go, he might be handing Muzan exactly what he wanted. But Muzan had said one word that hit Peter's chest like a fist. "Home." Peter exhaled. "I'm going," Peter said. Tanjiro's eyes widened. "Spider-Man." Peter raised a hand. "Not alone." Tenjin stepped forward. He said alone. Peter's mask lenses narrowed. "He can say whatever he wants. I'm not signing his terms and conditions." Shinobu's voice stayed quiet. "If Muzan is truly there..." Tengen's jaw tightened. "Then we die." Peter looked at them all. "I'm not asking you to die for me," Peter said. "I'm asking you to help me keep him from taking what he wants." Tanjiro swallowed, then nodded. "We will come." Tengen's grin returned, sharp and fearless. Flashy suicide mission. Fine. Shinobu's smile looked like a knife. I will bring something special. Peter stared. Poison? Shinobu blinked innocently. Medicine. Peter muttered, Sure. Tomioka appeared at the edge of the yard, silent as always. He didn't speak to anyone else. He looked at Peter. You will be tested, Tomioka said. Peter nodded once. I know. Tomioka's voice stayed flat. Do not break. Peter's stomach tightened. He nodded again. I won't. The shrine sat in a field of dead grass. Wisteria did not grow here. Nothing did. The air smelled clean, but Peter's spider sense screamed anyway. The warning was so loud it made his skin crawl under the suit. Moonlight washed the old wood in pale light. Peter crouched on a tree branch near the shrine. His web shooters were loaded with 3 types of web cartridges now. Normal web, heavy web, and the new one, Nichiren thread web, fragile but biting. Tanjiro hid lower in the grass behind a stone, breathing slow. Tengen crouched farther to the right, muscles ready. Shinobu stayed back, calm as a statue, holding a small case. Tomioka was a quiet shadow near the shrine steps. Peter didn't like how still it all felt. It felt like being in a room with a bomb that hadn't decided when to explode. A voice came from inside the shrine. Smooth, warm, human. Spider-Man. Peter's breath caught. The door slid open. A man stepped out in a simple outfit, like a noble out for a walk. His face was beautiful in a cold way. His eyes were calm and dead at the same time. Peter's spider sense screamed at full volume. That was Muzan. He walked down the steps like there was no danger at all. Thank you for coming, Muzan said. Peter dropped from the branch and landed in the grass, staying between Muzan and the hidden slayers. He kept his voice light, because fear gave Muzan power. Yeah, Peter said. Hi, so, quick note, this is creepy. Muzan smiled faintly. You are brave. Or foolish. Peter shrugged. That's a fun mystery. Muzan's gaze moved over Peter's suit, the mask, the web shooters. Your body does not belong here. Peter's mask lenses narrowed. Neither do you. You're literally a night parasite. Muzan's smile didn't move. Words do not matter, only outcomes. He stepped closer. Peter's spider sense screamed again, and he didn't wait. He fired a heavy web burst at Muzan's chest. The web struck. Muzan didn't dodge. He let it hit like he wanted it to. The web wrapped around him thickly. For half a second, Peter felt hope. Then Muzan's body shifted. Not like a person moving. Like flesh turning into something else. The web tore as Muzan's torso bulged, spikes pushing through, ripping strands like thread. Peter's stomach turned. Muzan stepped out of the broken web like it was a joke. Peter's voice went tight. Okay. Gross. Muzan's eyes stayed calm. Your webbing is impressive. Peter fired again, this time with the Nichiren thread web. The strand wrapped around Muzan's arm. Muzan's flesh smoked where the thread pressed. For the first time, Muzan's eyes narrowed. Peter's heart kicked. It worked. Muzan looked at the smoking line like it offended him. Interesting. Peter pulled hard, trying to bind Muzan fully. Muzan's arm flexed. The Nichiren thread web strained. It didn't break right away. Muzan's gaze lifted to Peter again. You learned. Peter's voice was low. Yeah, I do that. Muzan took another step forward anyway, dragging the burning line with him. Peter's spider sense screamed like it was begging him to run. He stood his ground. Let's talk, Muzan said, as if they were normal men. Peter laughed once, sharp. No. Muzan's tone stayed calm. I can send you home. Peter froze. Even with all his preparation, the words still hit hard. Peter's throat tightened behind the mask. Muzan watched him closely, like a scientist watching a reaction. There is a tier between worlds, Muzan continued. It opened for you. It can open again. Peter's mind flashed images. Aunt May, MJ, Ned, his city, his life. He wanted it so badly it hurt. Muzan leaned forward slightly. Give me your blood. Give me your knowledge. Serve me. Peter's hands clenched. Tanjiro's breathing changed in the grass behind him, like Tanjiro wanted to leap up and shout. Peter forced his voice steady. No. Muzan blinked once. Think. Peter's voice sharpened. I am thinking. Muzan's smile thinned. Then you understand the trade. You return to your world. I gain what I want. This world becomes my garden. Peter's chest burned with anger. You're not offering peace, Peter said. You're offering slavery. Muzan's voice stayed soft. Words. Peter took a slow step forward. No, Peter said again. Here's the thing. I don't do deals with monsters. Muzan's eyes went cold. In that moment, the polite mask dropped. His body moved. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter dodged barely. Muzan's hand shot past Peter's face and smashed into the air behind him, like he was trying to grab Peter's skull. Peter twisted, fired a web line, and yanked himself backward into the air. Muzan moved faster than the human eye should track. He leaped up, following Peter like gravity didn't matter. Peter's stomach dropped. He swung sideways and shot a Nichiren thread web at Muzan's legs. The thread wrapped. Muzan's flesh smoked again. Muzan's body jerked, irritated. That tiny delay was all Peter needed. He shouted, "Now!" Tenjin exploded out of hiding, swords flashing. Tomioka moved like a silent wave, blade aimed clean and true. Shinobu threw something small into the grass near Muzan's feet. It shattered and released a pale mist. Tanjiro surged in, eyes focused. Muzan's eyes widened not with fear, but with surprise. Then he smiled. You brought friends, Muzan said. Peter's voice was strained as he swung overhead, trying to keep the web tension. Yeah, and you brought 0 social skills. Muzan's body changed again. Multiple arms burst out like spears. The blades of the Hashira met them. Metal rang. Wood splintered. The shrine steps cracked. Peter's spider sense screamed nonstop. He fired web after web, creating a net above Muzan, anchoring it to trees and shrine beams. He dropped a thick web sheet down like a curtain to block Muzan's line of sight. Muzan tore it apart. Peter dropped another, then another, forcing Muzan to keep breaking, forcing tiny delays. Tenjin pushed in on those delays, cutting arms as they formed. Tomioka aimed for the neck with clean strikes. Tanjiro moved with sharp focus, looking for openings. But Muzan's regeneration was not like Akaza's. It was worse. It was a flood. Every cut closed, every limb returned, every mistake got punished fast. Muzan's eyes locked on Peter. He didn't want the swordsman. He wanted the anomaly. Muzan lunged toward Peter in a blur. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter fired a web to a tree and yanked himself out of reach. Muzan changed direction midair like a creature that didn't obey normal motion. Peter's heart jumped into his throat. Muzan was still coming. And then Peter heard it. A cry. Not from the slayers. From inside the shrine. Peter's eyes flicked toward the open doorway. A small figure tied up was shoved forward by a lesser demon. A child. Muzan hadn't come alone. Peter's stomach dropped. Muzan's voice was smooth again, like he was narrating a lesson. You see, you cannot fight and protect forever. Peter's body reacted before his mind finished the thought. He shot a web at the child, yanked them sideways out of the doorway, and pulled them into his arms mid-swing. The lesser demon lunged. Tomioka cut it down in one clean motion. Peter landed with the child behind him, webbing them gently to a tree trunk so they wouldn't run. Stay, Peter said, voice low. Don't move. The child sobbed but nodded fast. Muzan watched all of it. He smiled. That, Muzan said, is your weakness. Peter's voice shook with anger. No, that's my job. Muzan moved again. Peter's spider sense screamed. Peter fired the last of his Nichiren thread web in a wide fan, aiming not at Muzan's body, but at the ground and trees around him. The threads stuck. They formed a tight web cage around Muzan's space, like a burning net line. Muzan stepped into it, and smoke rose from his skin where it touched. Muzan's eyes narrowed sharply. He ripped at it, and the threads tore flesh. Not enough to kill. Enough to slow. Enough to annoy. Enough to create a window. "Tanjiro," Peter shouted. "Head now." Tanjiro dashed in, blade raised. Tengen hit from the side at the same time, driving Muzan's shifting arms away. Tomioka struck from the front, clean and fast. 3 blades aimed for one neck. For one perfect moment, it looked like it might work. Then Muzan's body did something that made Peter's stomach twist. His neck split. Not cut. Split. Like it was avoiding the strike by becoming something else. The blades sliced through moving flesh and bone, but Muzan did not fall. He laughed softly. "Almost," Muzan said. Peter's chest heaved. He knew it now. They were not killing Muzan tonight. Not with blades alone. Not yet. But they could still win something else. Time. Information. A warning. Peter shouted, "Shinobu!" Shinobu stepped forward and flicked a small blade across Muzan's skin just a scratch. Not enough to impress. But Shinobu didn't need to impress. She needed contact. Muzan's eyes snapped to her. "What did you do?" Muzan asked, voice suddenly colder. Shinobu smiled. "Medicine." Muzan lunged to kill her. Peter moved instantly, firing a heavy web to yank Shinobu backward. Tengen blocked the killing strike with crossed blades. The impact blasted him back a step. Peter's spider sense screamed again. The sky at the horizon was starting to change. It wasn't dawn yet, but it was coming. Muzan felt it too. His gaze flicked toward the edge of the world like he hated it. Peter's heart hammered. He leaned into the fight harder. Not to win. To force a retreat. Peter layered normal web with Nichiren thread web, making a barrier that burned and held for seconds at a time. Tengen and Tomioka kept pressure high, cutting arms and forcing Muzan to waste mass regenerating. Tanjiro stayed close, focused, eyes fierce, refusing to break. Muzan tried twice more to reach Peter. Both times, Peter's spider sense saved him by a breath. The third time, Muzan got close enough that Peter felt cold air against his cheek through the mask. Muzan's fingers brushed Peter's shoulder, and Peter reacted with raw instinct. He slammed his palm into Muzan's chest with full strength. The hit launched Muzan backward through the shrine doorway. Wood exploded. The shrine wall collapsed. Dust and splinters filled the air. Peter heard the child scream behind him. He forced himself to stay steady. Muzan rose from the wreckage, body reshaping, eyes burning with anger now. Not because he was hurt, because he was being delayed, because he was being denied. Muzan's voice turned sharp. "You choose them over your home." Peter's voice came out rough. "Yeah." Muzan took one step forward, then stopped, because the first line of sunlight touched the far edge of the field. It wasn't full day, but it was close enough to remind Muzan of the only thing he truly feared. Muzan's eyes narrowed into hate. He looked at Peter like Peter was a problem that would grow. "This is not over," Muzan said. Peter's chest rose and fell. "I know." Muzan's gaze slid to Tanjiro, then to Tomioka, then to Shinobu, then back to Peter. And for the first time, Muzan's smile looked strained. "You will regret your choice," Muzan promised. Peter's voice was low and steady. "Get in line." Muzan vanished into the shadows as the sun rose higher, slipping away like a sickness escaping the light. The field went quiet. Everyone stayed still for a second, like their bodies didn't trust that it was done. Then Tanjiro exhaled shakily. Tengen wiped sweat from his brow and laughed once, sharp and relieved. Flashy survival. Shinobu looked at her small blade and the tiniest smear of blood on it. She slipped it into a container with careful hands. Peter stared at that container. Blood sample. Not a victory, but a step. Peter turned toward the child, still webbed safely to the tree, shaking with fear. Peter walked over, crouched, and gently peeled the web away. "It's okay," Peter said softly. "It's morning." The child cried harder, but it was the kind of crying that meant they were alive. Peter stood, breathing out. He looked at the sunrise. Then he looked back at the slayers. "We didn't get him," Peter said. Tomioka answered, calm. "No one gets him easily." Peter nodded. "But we made him work." Tanjiro's eyes were wet but fierce. And we protected the child. Peter's throat tightened. He turned away slightly so no one would see his face through the cracked lens. Yeah, Peter said. That matters. On the walk back, no one spoke much. They were too tired, too aware of what almost happened. At the mansion gates, Kagaya waited. He had been informed. He always was. He looked at Peter, and his calm gaze didn't change. You faced him, Kagaya said. Peter nodded. Yeah. Kagaya's voice stayed gentle. And you refused him. Peter's jaw tightened. Yeah. Kagaya paused. That choice will shape your life here. Peter swallowed. I figured. Kagaya nodded once. Then you may stay. Peter blinked behind the mask. I was staying anyway. Kagaya's faint smile returned. Now it is official. Peter let out a breath he didn't know he needed. Later that day, Shinobu asked Peter to step into a quiet room. Tamayo was there too, calm and serious. Tanjiro stood by the door like a guard. Peter's spider sense buzzed lightly, but not like danger. Like importance. Shinobu spoke first. We need your name. Peter's shoulders tightened. Why? Tamayo's voice was gentle. Because Muzan will try to use it. Names have power, even when you think they don't. Tanjiro's eyes were steady. I will keep it safe. Peter stared at them. A small circle. The kind of circle you survive because of. Peter reached up slowly. He lifted the mask. The room didn't change, but the air did. Tanjiro's eyes softened with recognition, like seeing the face made the hero more real. Shinobu watched with open curiosity, like she was storing every detail. Tamayo's expression stayed calm, but her eyes held respect. Peter's voice was quiet. Peter. Tanjiro repeated it softly. Peter. Peter nodded. Peter Parker. No dramatic music. No big announcement. Just a name placed into trusted hands like a fragile thing. Peter put the mask back on. Shinobu spoke lightly again, returning to her normal tone. Peter Parker, you are still not cool. Peter exhaled a laugh. Thank you, Dr. Sword. Tamayo looked at the container of blood. This is the first step. Peter nodded. Then we keep stepping. The next week settled into a new kind of normal. Not safe. Never safe. But structured. Peter became a shadow that moved with slayers on rooftops at night. He became the warning that shouted before a strike landed. He became the net that held a demon still. He became the hands that lifted a beam off a family's home. Some slayers still mistrusted him. Tsunemi still glared like Peter was a mistake waiting to happen. But fewer people whispered, demon now. More people whispered, guardian. Peter didn't let himself enjoy that. Because he knew what legends did. They made you stop being a person. So Peter did small human things instead. He fixed broken sandals for kids with web glue. He carried water buckets. He sat with injured slayers who couldn't sleep and told bad jokes until they sighed instead of shaking. And every so often, he wrote another report. Tanjiro actually started asking for them. Not because the Corps needed paperwork, because Tanjiro liked clear plans, and because Peter needed something to hold on to when the nights felt endless. Far away, Muzan stayed in the dark, watching. He did not panic. He did not rage. He adjusted. He had met strong humans before. He had met stubborn humans too. But this one was different. This one did not break when offered everything. That meant Muzan would not offer again. He would take, someday, when the moment was perfect. The morning air at the mansion was cool and clean. Peter stood alone on the roof, watching the sun rise over the trees. He had learned the rhythm of this world. Night meant danger. Morning meant counting the survivors. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Tanjiro stepped up and stood beside him, eyes on the horizon. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Tanjiro said, "Do you miss your home?" Peter's throat tightened. He didn't joke this time. "Yes," Peter said, "every day." Tanjiro nodded. "But you're still here." Peter looked at the sun. "Because people are still here." Tanjiro's voice was soft. "Muzan will come again." Peter nodded. "Yeah." Tanjiro glanced at him. Are you afraid? Peter's mask lenses angled toward Tanjiro. He could have lied. He didn't. Always, Peter said, but I show up anyway. Tanjiro smiled, small and steady. That's what you do. Peter looked out over the quiet world, then down at the mansion yard where slayers trained, laughed, argued, and lived between battles. He had not fixed this world. He had not ended its war. But he had changed the shape of a few nights. He had bought time. He had saved people who would have died. Peter exhaled slowly. Okay, he said under his breath, like a promise to himself more than anyone else. Same rule, different sky.